Louise Hosking. Welcome to everybody on the call today, wherever you are from around the world.
Hello, I'm Kurt Cadet. Don't forget this event will be recorded and can be viewed next week on LinkedIn.
Hello, my name is Shireen Bishop-Simon. Did you know that you could use this event for your CPD?
Hello, my name's Tony Cox. Did you know our sessions are interactive with a chat feature? So you can ask questions anytime without disturbing anyone. We'll deal with them as we proceed.
Hi, my name's Trevor Hamilton. Introduce yourself on the chat box and tell us where you're from.
Hi, I'm Tim Birkin, and did you know that the speakers' presentations will be available on LinkedIn, the IOSH Chiltern Branch page, and also on the microsite? Definitely worth downloading.
Hi, my name is Lee Owens. Why not write or post a review on LinkedIn and Twitter and share the experience?
Well, hello, I'm Alan Plom. We invite you to join this virtual event with your video on. Don't be shy.
Hi, my name is Richard White. If you've enjoyed today's session, don't forget to tell your friends.
Hello, I'm Luke James, and we collaborate with groups and members across the world.
Enjoy the session. Hello everybody from wherever you are. Did you like our intro? If you did, you can give us a bit of a thumbs up. So one of the things that we will let you know, and there is a link on our LinkedIn site, we had some serious outtakes for that, so it might be worth looking at those. Hello to everybody and welcome. My name is Louise Hosking. I'm the chair of the Chiltern Branch. Welcome to this session, which we're holding in collaboration with the Yorkshire branch, which is fantastic. And I know that we should have some people on the line from the Environment Waste Management Group as well. So welcome everybody. So this is we've got a really fantastic agenda for you today. And I've really been looking forward to this session. So I'm going to start the speaker slots off with talking about inclusion, equality and diversity, which is something that I've been championing within IOSH. Emma Cook is going to talk about sleep health. And I think the one that everybody's been, I'm seeing a lot of chatter on social media at the moment, is all around David Thomas's session on corporate psychopaths. So each session is going to be about 20 minutes long. We love using the chat box in our sessions, so please chat amongst yourselves, let us know where you're from, and if you've got questions, what we're going to do is a bit of a panel debate with the questions at the end of the sessions. So please just go through those and I'll pick you out. If I could just remind everybody to keep their microphones on mute, but it is a branch meeting, so we love involvement, so we may well ask you to unmute your microphone so that you can speak. So just to let you know, the next session that we have for IOSH Chiltern Branch is going to be all about domestic animal hazards. So we've got a speaker who's actually, we're actually running it with a couple of our committee members. So Trevor works for the Royal Mail, so he's going to be talking about delivery personnel and some of the nasty animal bites that they've had and how they manage those. And David Whiteleg is bringing in, he's a special constable in the police force, so he's going to look at it from the police angle as well, and dog handling and those kind of things. And we want everybody to bring their pets to these sessions, so we're hoping that we're going to get some furry friends coming along to this session as well. So do have a look at that, and all of our sessions are posted on LinkedIn. So all of the previous sessions that we're having, this session is recorded, and you can catch up either on the Chiltern YouTube page or via the IOSH website if you go to past events. And we had a really fantastic session last time with Dr. Hyacinth Guy, who is a human capital expert, and she was actually speaking to us from the Caribbean. So we are an international branch, and we've got international committee members. So we're trying to pull in people from across the world to cover these sessions. So that was a really fantastic session, all about capability, competency, and I loved the way we talked about, can you teach an old dog new tricks? So you'll have to have a look at that. And it very much tied in. I'm sure everybody's had their IOSH magazine through the post in the last couple of weeks, which, you know, over the next quarter, you're going to see loads of information from IOSH all around human capital. So that was great. We just got ahead of the curve there. So what's happening in IOSH at the moment? What is going on? So for the foreseeable future, and certainly until April, all of our sessions are going to be on Zoom. The Chiltern Committee is getting together to make sure that you've got all the dates coming forward, and we're hoping to put some sessions on in the evenings as well, so that we can reach those members that can't come to us live during the day. The next large IOSH seminar is all around ISO 45003, which is to do with psychosocial risks in the workplace. So that, I think that will get a lot of interest. So that will be a really good session. And actually it ties in, there's a consultation at the moment that's going on, and there's a link on these slides to that consultation, again all about around psychosocial risks, which closes at the end of this week. So if that's something that you're interested in and you want to have a look at that consultation, it is closing. It might be a bit bit late for you to, I'm going to try and upload my chair's links before the end of today. North East Scotland branch this evening at 6 o'clock, I said I'd give them a bit of a pitch, have got a event for their future leaders, and that's something in IOSH we're really trying to encourage. So if you are a future leader, or you're interested in how to support people that are coming through into the profession, then do have a look at that session. It's at 6 o'clock this evening. I didn't put the time on there. And I think it's going to be a really fantastic session. So that will be good. As always, all of the events for all of the branches, you know, and zoom in around the world. And just also a plug for the IOSH Benevolent Fund as well. So the IOSH Benevolent Fund is there to support members at their time of need. So if this is something that you need that support, then do follow that link. It's in complete confidence, and there's some amazing people that are running that. So you know, do have a look at that. And also we need funds. So if you're on the other side of the coin and you know you feel that you can donate, it was something that Andrew, our president, encouraged the whole of the presidential team to put a donation in, which we've all done. So please do consider that. That would be great. But all of those links are on there, along with the membership grades review. So that's going to be something we will probably be talking about in the coming weeks. Just the last little bit of news I wanted to really bring up was, you know, the Chiltern Committee members are actually making the news at the moment, which is fantastic. So Kurt, who is our committee member based in the Caribbean, wrote a fantastic article that's in this month's IOSH magazine. So well done, Kurt. I don't know if he's on the line. And also we've been, again, it's kind of tying in with promotions that IOSH are doing to promote individuals. So I'm very conscious that you see me presenting these as the host and the chair, but actually there's a whole team of people that are behind the scenes putting these fantastic sessions on. So one of the things that we've been doing is just highlighting, you know, our committee members and what they're doing, and Shireen has done a fantastic video, and I looked yesterday and it had 400 hits. So Shireen's video about why she's a volunteer and what she gets out of it is definitely going viral, so that's fantastic. So yeah, well done to our members that are making the news. So without further ado, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hopefully share the correct one again. So I'm going to present straight away. So I'm going to present or just talk a little bit about inclusion and equality, if I can bring up my correct screen. So look, everybody else practiced and now my screen's not coming up. What I may do is I might pass over to one of the other speakers. Emma, would you be prepared to go first? Because I'm having a problem with my machine. You're on mute at the moment.
Yeah.
Emma, I'm gonna bring Emma in until I can get my session started. So Emma, welcome to this joint collaboration. You're going to be talking about sleep health. I'll let you introduce yourself. And over to you.
Okay, well, hello everyone. I'm Emma. I'm from a company called Purely Balanced, and I'm going to give you a little bit of brief chat and some statistics and some ideas on sleep tips on how and why sleep and fatigue have been important, especially to health and safety in this current climate. Now, previous to all the COVID stuff, anyway, fatigue was always a massive factor where health and safety is regarded, simply because if you don't have a good sleeping pattern, what ends up happening is you end up with a cognitive impairment equivalent of having a blood alcohol level of 0.5%. Now, none of us would let our workers work drunk, but yet we all let them work fatigued. And at the moment, especially given the current climate, we are all running in a heavily fatigued way. So a couple of statistics to pop across to you there was a study done on 3,000 people by the Sleep Council, and they found that half of them people, half of the whole study, said that they were finding it harder to fall asleep through lockdown. Then 1 in 10 said that they feel quite depressed and down because of what's going on and the anxiety that's kicking in. What this then does is directly affects their sleep and sleep patterns, simply because any kind of worry and stress raises a cortisol level within the body, and it is cortisol which is our wake-up hormone on a morning. So an elevated level of cortisol will make you less tired throughout the day and on an evening. And 3/4 of them said that the lack of sleep and sleep quality is actually affecting their ability to work. Now, I said at the beginning, I'm from a company called Purely Balanced. What we've done is we've created a 5-point switch off routine, which has been scientifically proven to help people get into a deeper sleep state. So we've worked within the oil industry, in retail, health and wellbeing. We've worked with the NHS, all these different areas, and they all have the same common issue, which is fatigued workers. Now, from a health and safety point of view, obviously you want the best out of your workers. Now, if you've got some health and wellbeing issues going on, if they've got health and wellbeing go-tos, but they still don't fix their sleep, what ends up happening is, as just the human body works with a lack of sleep, we end up running on empty. Now, we've all done it. We've all experienced autopilot, we've all run when we've been tired, and we've all made small little mistakes. However, as we all know, when you start incorporating them into your day-to-day work life and even how we work now from home, any small mistake from being tired and dazed can actually be a major mistake. So at the moment, with this inconsistent sleep schedule, and coupled with the stress of the economy and health, and not to mention job security at the moment, what's ended up happening is we are increasing the levels of fatigue, and what we're finding now is people don't really know where to go to help that. So as health and safety goes, even if you've got these toolbox talks that you give or your rules and regulations, if the person receiving any of that is quite tired and fatigued, the chances of them actually absorbing the information and remembering the information, yet alone being able to act on it, are limited and restricted by the fatigued state of mind. So this is why there's such a sort of a spotlight at the moment on fatigue. And again, like I said, not many people really know where to go. So what I'll do as well is I'm going to give you a couple of little hints and tips of what you could do from our point of view to improve your sleep. And then you can pass that along to anyone that you know as well. Now, why this has all happened and why fatigue at the moment is on everybody's radar is quite simply because as the world's in this crisis or worry or whatever you want to call it, the pandemic that we're in, what's ended up happening is because we're all stressed about either being stressed or losing work, or we don't know what's going to happen. And let's be honest, none of us have a date or time when this is actually going to be over. We end up running in a state of fight or flight pretty much all day, every day. So we're experiencing that, but also your workers will experience that. Now, added this into the fact that previous to COVID-19, we were all running in a quite fatigued state. All of a sudden, now that we've got the added implications of the way that the world's gone and the way that everything's been, all of a sudden, we've now ended up in this sort of stressed, anxious and depressed kind of area where all of our health and well-being of our people that we know, our teams, it all now needs to be completely changed and completely helped. So why it's happened is because the disruption of our daily life, obviously it's on everybody's mind, everybody's thinking about it, which again, once you start to overthink things, sleep is the first thing that you'll lose out on, because when the body's running in a state of fight or flight, when it comes to going to bed, you struggle to switch off on a night. So you might be experiencing this, you might have had your team or members experience this, and it's all just because of the way that we've been thinking and all the things that's been put our way with COVID-19. Now, not only that, it's then added in with the anxiety of the actual worry and stress of the health of our loved ones and our family members, as well as all of our job securities. We've all been on the line with it. And then not only that as well, one of the main implications that COVID's actually had regarding fatigue is we are now all working online. Now, most of our workers are working online more often than they ever were, and the added screen time also actually affects the way that we sleep. And it does this because screen time and any device that you sit in front of you as a person actually reacts with the cortisol levels in the body, meaning the higher the cortisol level, the less chance you have of going to sleep on an evening. And this is why, back to the statistics I said at the beginning, most people are finding it hard to fall asleep and then finding that they wake up earlier on a morning. And this is just down to how we've changed our day-to-day routine. Now, what I'm going to share with you just now, if I can work this, is our 5-point routine. So we've got a couple of points here. Oh, here we go. There you go. So if you'd like to take a picture of that, okay? What this is basically what we recommend that you guys do to help you switch off. Now, there's a website at the top and there's an email address there as well. If you'd like to actually see what our 5-point routine is, if you've been struggling with sleep yourself, or if you've got workforce that are fatigued and obviously just running a little bit low, pop an email to that email and I shall send you the link, or we can set up a free pilot to show how we can help your team. But just for now, our top sleeping tips are, we've got the 5-point switch off routine, which we at Purely Balanced actually developed, which is basically based around using the human body to help you switch off. So what we've realized, and what we realized a while ago, is switching the mind off on an evening is a really hard task. If you actually use your body in specific ways, you can relax the body to a state of sleeping deeper. Now, what we do is we get people that come along to sleep deeper in their sleeping states rather than sleeping for longer. So we improve the sleep quality you get, not the quantity, which at the moment people do need to pay attention to. So some other little points you've got is things like offloading your day with a list on the evening. If on a night you start to just offload things that you need to do, that you didn't do, or things that are on your mind, you will work with your subconscious. So when you come to fall asleep, the body actually allows you to fall asleep. It basically, you work with your mind rather than lying in bed and the mind going over and over. So lists on an evening, and what you'll find is by making a list on an evening, when you work on a morning and you go to work on a morning, or when you wake up, all of a sudden the list's there. It's kind of like your day's already planned out. And it might take you a couple of times of doing this, and then all of a sudden the brain will start to work for you. By the time you come to go to bed on the night, you'll be able to switch off. The other thing as well, with the fact that a lot of us have been working from home, is getting daylight at the start of your day and the end of your day. The reason why this is because normally we would have travelled to work. Now, although you'd be travelling in a vehicle usually, what would have happened is in lockdown, we haven't really been getting outside much. Now, obviously that was because we were restricted, but even things like sitting near a window, getting out in the morning, just having your coffee stood at the front door or the back door, little things. If you actually get daylight onto your skin early in the morning, it helps reset your circadian clock. And it's our circadian clock that we go against as shift workers as well. So one of the things that we specialise in at Purely Balanced is shift work and how to get your team to transition through the shifts and do your shift rotations. Now, the other thing that you could do is having a significant shutdown routine for bed to actually signal it's the end of your day. Now, again, with the current climate, we're actually all working a lot more hours than we ever were, simply because we don't really have a switch off at the moment. You know, you've got a very fine line between work life and home life, simply because our work life is now in our home life. So what the studies are now finding is people are actually working longer hours and not particularly switching off, rather than getting up in the morning and wait until 8 or 9 o'clock when you would have normally been at work. People are having a coffee, flipping the laptop over. All of a sudden, what's ended up happening is us as humans are now working a lot more than what we ever were, as well as all of this change in routine. So all of a sudden, our brain doesn't know the difference. Again, taking us back to, we're struggling to understand how to switch off. So just a little thing that you could do there. Then there's another thing, which is sleep sounds on YouTube. So you could just type in, when you are falling asleep, any sort of sleep sounds that you want. What will end up happening is, if you are a busy thinker on an evening, these sleep sounds will actually help your brain just to switch off, because it gives them something to focus on. You can get these on, again, if you go to the website that we've got there, there's some ideas of how to do that. The sleep sounds that you want are things like sleep stories or white noise backgrounds. These kind of things that are quite easy to listen to, and what happens is the brain kind of focuses on that and it allows you to relax. If you couple that with making a list on an evening, it'll help you into a deeper sleep state. And last is just keeping a cool room. And the reason why this one is because if your body's nice and cool, it's easier for your body temperature to regulate to put you to sleep. Now, like I said there, we've got the 5-point switch off routine, and what we actually do is we take you and your team over what to do if you're not sleeping and how to sleep better. So you can pop yourself along to the email if you want to have a look at that. And again, the reason why all of this is important is because if you start to fix you and your team's sleeping health and sleeping schedule, you'll start to improve the quality of the days that you're having. What will happen is the hormones will start to balance out. So this stress and anxious sort of feeling that we've been working in, they'll start to regulate, because sleep is what improves and regulates them. Also, and especially in the current climate, sleep is what's responsible for fixing your immune system. So at the moment when everybody's running in, obviously we're all worried about the virus. If you actually get a good sleeping system going and a good sleep schedule, you'll end up with a good immune system. So you've got a better chance to fight the virus. Sleep also actually helps your brain health. So you are more likely to think more clear. You are more likely to become more focused if you are sleeping soundly. And the reason being is because it's while you're asleep that your brain categorizes and cleans everything that it learned the day before. So if you get a good night's sleep and you hit some deep sleep states quite often, you'll wake up feeling better. So some of these things that are coming at you that would normally be quite easy to handle and manage, you'll actually be more clear and more focused when you're thinking about it. Now, again, we are putting a lot of emphasis on COVID-19 and blaming COVID-19 for our running in a state of fatigue at the moment. But this was actually on our radars before COVID-19 because of the impact of what a good night's sleep has. If you start to fix your sleep and your team's sleep, you'll start to run more focused, more productive. Things like your day-to-days will just become easier. And once you start getting into a good sleep routine, you can then pass that on to anyone that you know. It's just a knock-on effect, you know. So I'll just and I don't know how to stop sharing. There you go. Yeah, so overall, the COVID-19 pandemic has massively affected how we work and how we sleep. What I have then found since I've been doing these online sessions and what the majority of the emails that are coming in are based around people being worried. So people being worried and frightened about what's actually going on. It's then impacting the way that they are working, thinking, feeling because of the way that they're sleeping. So if you actually paid attention to your sleep health, all of a sudden you'll be able to start feeling better, thinking better, and everything that's around at the moment and all this, the uncertainty, it'll start to die off a little bit, because if you start to fix your sleep rather than having to do all the other health and well-being things as well, if you fix your sleep, you'll wake up feeling better around everything else that's going on. So is that about right, Louise? I don't know what time we were on because I didn't pay attention. Sorry, guys.
I was thinking actually we should have had you on at the end because all of this information. That was amazing. Thank you. If anybody's got any questions for Emma, we're going to handle all the questions at the end of the session. But I'm going to now run. I've had some problems with my slideshow, so hopefully Richard has got my slide deck ready. Have you, Richard? Is he there? Yay. Look at that, amazing, the power of technology. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about inclusion, equality and diversity. And I suppose I've got a bit of a story around this really. In that I've been involved with the branch for quite a long time. I was elected to be a vice president in 2017, and this was kind of a piece that I wanted to really promote and take on as a mantle. And one of my piece in terms of this is that I really it's very much at the heart of the ethos of how we certainly run the Chiltern branch, is that everybody has something to bring to the party. And I think whilst we're talking about inclusion and well-being and all those kind of pieces, if people feel excluded, I remember a psychologist once saying to me that it triggers the same sort of response in the brain as physical injury. So if we can just be kind to each other and be inclusive, it will be good for our overall for all of us. And I think certainly we show as volunteers exactly the power of working together is just immense. So it is a topic that's very dear to my heart, and I often I quite like opening this with a story of when I was younger, and actually I was talking about this story with somebody else recently, is that I'm a first careerer in terms of health and safety. So I've been involved in this work for almost 30 years. And I started off life as an environmental health officer. And I remember going to one of the first times I was in court handling a prosecution for the council against somebody who hadn't followed through on their improvement notice. And I remember the defence solicitor, the way that he tried to attack me, because literally I think I was 21 or 22, is he basically attacked my age and said, what can you possibly know about this? you're knee high to a grasshopper, effectively said, you know, what can you possibly know? And that was a really massive mistake, because I just finished my finals and I knew every code of practice completely off by heart and back to front, and he actually congratulated me on my evidence at the end of it. So, you know, this is all about everybody being involved and everybody having an opportunity to contribute. So, Richard, if I could have my next slide, please. So if you could just flick through these, Richard, and just bring it all open. So when we talk about inclusion, equality and diversity, you know, this is kind of different parts of a wheel, if you like, and they do mean different things. So for, you know, inclusion is about being able to express yourself and being heard. So we don't, you know, not all of us think the same way about the same things, but we should all have that opportunity to be heard. Equality is about coming into the room and being invited in the room, you know, and being in the room. And diversity is about having that seat at the table and having that mixed up piece. And if we can bring that all together, it enables us to have inclusive leadership. So that kind of piece brings it all together. So, Richard, if we could click on to the next slides. If you go on to the next one. So I've just put a few definitions in there, because sometimes we kind of talk about all of these things and we don't really have any kind of definitions behind it. So I'm very conscious of time. I'm not going to go through all of this. What I will talk about is the final one, which is what we call intersectionality. And this might be something that you're kind of starting to hear about. And it's this piece around, it's about looking at multiple factors and how we can just have an environment and a work environment that, you know, allows everybody to thrive and doesn't differentiate between anybody, but creates that whole environment. So, you know, that's something that we're really aiming for. So if we could have the next slide. So in terms of, you know, where we are, I mean, there's no question of the fact that, you know, we've come a long way from, you know, looking back in history, but we've still got a long way to go as well. So, you know, there's just a few pieces in there. You know, 1 in 5 LGBTQ plus staff have experienced verbal bullying. I mean, that's a huge proportion. You know, a recent survey identified half respondents felt their employer could do more in terms of disability inclusion. You know, and we're still, you know, women are still fighting to, you know, reach those most senior positions within organisations. And I'm going to talk a little bit about gender, because it actually swings in both directions. So it's about having that kind of balance. So there's a lot of information there, but we've still got a long way to go. So if we could have the next slide. So there is some just enormous benefits in terms of getting this right. And it's not always easy, you know, it's not, you know, we naturally as animals, we're kind of attracted to be, you know, drawn to people that are similar to us or like us. But, you know, as we move on, and I think particularly at the moment when we're going through all of this crisis, you know, and I think as IOSH professionals, we've all gone through quite a journey with this, and it is about putting people first. And it does, you know, it's good for organisations. It's good to have that diversity of thought. You know, I mean, one of the things I love about our committee is that we've got, I'm looking at Tony there, who's our wonderful statesman, and then we've got, you know, we've got the younger professionals who are just coming into this industry, and when we bring everybody together, you know what, we can just achieve amazing things. So it's about consciously thinking about the things that we're biased about, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second. So if we can have the next slide. So this is, I've actually taken these statistics off of the recent IOSH member survey. So you can see there that we have still got, you know, we are an aging demographic, and you know, we've still, I think in terms of the proportion of women, it's changed very little in terms of IOSH. What I'm hoping is that, as you know, certainly as we get more involved with the health part of what we're doing, I think it will attract more women. But that proportion's kind of been there for quite a long time, and we are this kind of aging demographic. So, you know, how can we readjust that balance really? And it is all about balance. It's not about, I think a lot of people get nervous about talking about this kind of topic because they feel that, you know, we're going to prioritize one group over another, and it's that not like that at all. It's about having balance. And when we talk about, you know, we're talking about men and women, but actually we could equally talk about people that have got feminine traits and male traits. So it's not just, you know, about men and women. And we also know that, you know, men, you know, around the ages of 50, that they're more likely to take their own lives through suicide than any other age bracket. And that's, you know, why is that? Is that because they feel like they're, you know, taking on these burdens and not able to talk about them in the same way? So if we can create a balance within the workplace, it's good for everybody. So if we can go to the next slide, Richard. I really love this slide, and I think this is about different perspectives. So we all have different perspectives on different things, and you know, my perspective of what I'm looking for, what I'm doing and saying might come from a really good heartfelt place, but actually it's received by the other person in a different way. And so it's being very conscious of that. And, you know, it's about having that empathy and really strong communication, which makes, you know, that's at the heart of how we manage organisations to be, you know, psychologically strong and psychologically safe. So if we can have the next slide. And I think, you know, communication around this is so important, because when we don't know what's going on, we kind of naturally start to fill in the gaps for things, which is a bad thing to do, because those gaps that we fill in might not be correct after all. We might be going down a rabbit hole, but if we can communicate with people in the right way and with respect, then we're not going to be filling in the gaps with things that just are not really there. So if we can go to the next one. So I've got a couple of questions here. What we might do is use the chat box here. So Richard's going to turn over the next couple of slides. And what would really be great in the chat box is if you can say what springs to mind when we show you these next couple of images. So Richard, if you could bring up the first image. So this is an author published by the Financial Times. So just, if everybody can just get active, use the chat box, tell me what springs to mind when you're thinking about an author, what type of person springs to mind. Tina says well paid. Anybody else? Come on, guys. Gravitas from Phil. Educated. Anybody else? Man in a black suit, well informed. So we're kind of juggling these opinions, aren't we? White middle-aged man, yeah. So we're instantly being drawn to this kind of image. So Richard, if we could bring up the next one. So what springs to mind in this image? Could this person be in the boardroom? So again, let me know what kind of, you know, is this somebody, you know, what springs to Extinction Rebellion, blogger, yeah. So we instantly get drawn to an archetype, don't we? And we, you know, the trick is, what if this individual could be a fantastic board member? who brings something to the board that nobody else has and brings that diversity. So it's about fighting our own perceptions of what we think, basically, which brings me on to bias. So if we can go to the next one, Richard. So there are loads of different biases, but I guess the piece for us is being conscious that we all have them. I mean, this is a topic that is really close to my heart, but I'm constantly looking at myself and saying, could I do things differently? Could I communicate differently? You know, and I think these biases, I'm just going to go through. So groupthink is where we, you know, and it's that piece about how we have an organization and say, well, this is how we do it here. This is our culture. Is this person a good fit? So should we be looking at that, or should we be looking at somebody that brings something different into the workplace? And groupthink is where we kind of all start to kind of mold into one, if you like. Stereotyping, I think we're all used to stereotyping because we all get perhaps stereotyped a little bit in our roles. But again, it's like the picture of the gentleman that we just had up there, is that, you know, we instantly make a decision about what that person is. Confirmation bias is where we look for evidence and statistics and something that draws us to say, well, look, I was right about that all along, without really thinking around the topic. So there's some interesting biases there, and it's just all about us being conscious about our own bias. So if you could just bring up the next one, Richard. So I don't know if Anne is still here, but Anne will recognise this slide. So we ran a fantastic equality and diversity session in London, gosh, 18 months ago now. And we had an elephant. Yeah, she's still there. We had an elephant in the room, and I use this slide so much. And I guess, you know, and again, I was talking about this week, is we've got to talk about this stuff. This is all about communication, how we talk to each other. And quite often, you know, you can be having a conversation with somebody that's at complete odds with somebody else, and they don't even realise it. And it is all about communication, but we've got to talk about the elephant in the room. We've got to have difficult conversations. We've got to challenge each other, and we've got to say, this is how I feel and this is why I feel. And you know what? That's okay. And it's about, you know, finding out each other's stories, because everybody's got something to bring. And when we get this right, we will have psychologically safe workplaces that are good for our health. And you know, that's why for me this is so important. So I have got a couple. I'm not going to dwell on the last. If you could just flick through the last couple of slides, Richard. So there's just, these are pictures that have been taken for it was International Women's Day, so just took some really great pictures there. But it's just a few tips there, using neutral language, being open, honest and kind, encouraging people to have, you know, really talking about this and getting into the hub of it, so that people can understand where you're coming from and listen. It's really about active listening as well. And the last slide, Richard. Yeah, just being aware of your own unconscious bias, and we all have them, and trying to work with a really wide range of individuals. I mean, I think that's something that being in a branch brings you, because there's all sorts of people that come to branch. And you know what, we're all trying to achieve the same things. So actually we've all got the same aims and objectives. And if we can find a way to work together, that's immensely powerful. So yeah, and I think is the last one my links, Richard? So yeah, if we just go, because I'm conscious of time, if we just go through to the end, there's a few more slides. These slides will become available. There's a lot of information that IOSH has got out there. We've got, and there's some final, I will add some links to this so that you can access the information. There's some great, there's a climate tool on the IOSH research on workplace behaviours, which, you know, if you're looking at this in your workplaces and thinking about it as part of your wellbeing programs, there's a really good climate tool in there. The Healthy Profit, I usually have a copy on my desk, I haven't at the moment, but that sets out the business case for this. So there's a really strong business case for it. Oh, and Mary's just said there's a really good section on the Careers Hub as well, so have a look at that. But yeah, but thank you for that, Richard. Thank you for jumping in and helping me out with my slides. But that's great. I think we're about on track. So if you've got any questions for me, bring them up in the chat box. David, I think you've got the session that everybody's looking forward to. So David, I'm going to hand over to you. If you'd just like to introduce yourself, the floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going back to setting up the my presentation. So yes, I lead on the programs, the master's programs at Middlesex University, Health, Safety and Wellbeing, and Health, Safety and Environment. My particular interest, by my teaching appears to have been last year and this year, is on the Wellbeing module and the Environment module. And I also chair the IOSH MG, and I think this topic crosses every aspect of work. Now, I'm not a psychologist, but I have spoken and read a few things and a few articles, and this is something where I think business is trying to get in the hang of a little bit. It's very interesting. A couple of things that Louise said on her presentation that tie in. Her message to be open, honest, and kind. Now, corporate psychopaths, which tend to be 2% of men and 0.5% of women, that means there's 4 times as many men and women. These tend to rise to the top in organisations. So that the fact that chief exec roles attract corporate psychopaths, you will get more men than women. And that is the fact we're working with. And throughout this presentation, I'm going to touch on various things that these people are very clever. It's been said that people with psychopathic tendencies either go into crime, so people who have psychopathic tendencies, if they're not that clever, go into crime. If they're intelligent, they go into business. So now you see, back to your picture of the Financial Times, I actually put down a gambler for Financial Times, because these are people gambling with money. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. They don't really know. They bluster and whatever. And there's lots of false leads there. So I want you to go away from this session to just go away and just think and reflect on your careers and who you work with now. Could I have the first questionnaire right now, please? Could I? Because there are a couple of questionnaires I'd like to be asked. So please, we're going to ask you questions at the end as well. So it's just be nice if you can. If in doubt, put no to everything, please. I'd like you all to take part if you say no. There's a couple more, up to 80% voted. Those who haven't, please put no if you're not quite sure. If you have software issues, then please put a comment in the comments thing. We'll pause it at this point. 82% voted, we'll pause it at this point. So get the result very quickly, can we? So there you go. Most of you don't know what it is. And funny enough, that many of you don't know what it is, but more of you actually think you've been managed by one. That's an interesting one. I thought it might be the other way around. So, the no's have it in most cases, so as they would say in Parliament. So if we move on then to the next slide, please. So if we can take that off, and thank you, we'll save that one. So it's back to this, who oversees the culture of wellbeing in an organisation? Who drives it? And I always say these things come from the top. So the fear with this is that you have people at the top who have these tendencies or behaviours who actually, in theory, are leading on wellbeing. That's a challenge we have. And how often do we find out when we're doing risk assessments that the biggest one is people will be people? And that first came to me when someone close to me, because of relationship issues at work, and poor management eventually managed to get their hours changed so they wouldn't conflict with somebody else, because the working relationship wasn't working, people were going off on sick. And we have to accept that in life, not everyone gets on. Those who watch football might remember Kieran Dyer and Lee Bowyer many years ago at Newcastle, one of the great punch-ups on the football field as teammates. Derek Hales and Mick Flanagan at Cheltenham many years ago by punch-up in the 4th round FA Cup tie. Teammates, co-workers. And did they instantly dismiss them, by the way? That is the question you might have to ask elsewhere. So after that change, of course, and the first person who was probably the one with the bullying behaviour, they had a mental health problem, and their shift was then changed. So it clashed with the first person's. And the employer wouldn't change it again because the argument was, we've done your reasonable adjustment, even though they put the hazard back in place. They didn't understand and want to understand the people-to-people conflict, which to me is something you have to think about. Is this a big risk? And hopefully all of you have seen at some point where there's been conflict in the workplace. And it's been said that one of the criticisms of certain people in one of the political parties here, so they wanted the law changed that if people didn't get on with their manager, then the manager could sack them quite legally because the manager is more important. I just thought that is going back to employment relations of the 19th century. So we have to be careful. We have to consider this. So consider IOSH's key areas. And why I think it's relevant, we're back to this, that I think that you've got 3 of those: rehabilitation, return to work, well-being, physical and mental health, and sustainability and human capital, are all influenced by people who affect bullying and work and behaviour in the workplace. So I would suggest consider your risk assessments. Have your risk assessments all taken into account the challenges of bullying and clashes between staff? Have you considered the challenge of people with differing mental health conditions and their impact on each other? And before you say, we'll get occupational health involved, I have heard the transcript of an occupational health interview with a patient or an employee. And that interview was taken back to the patient's GP. And it was said that the occupational health nurse who was doing it was and could not be qualified in any aspect of mental health diagnosis. And that person was advising the organisation. So we have some major flaws. The HR profession, of course, who I was hoping would challenge, there'd be more HR people here, but they don't like these discussions because really it starts to mean all the stuff they put on as foundation for the organisation, their policies actually are sitting on sand, not concrete. So I Googled corporate psychopaths and I got 1.76 million hits. Oh, by the way, COVID-19 gave me about 56 billion hits, like 7 hits per person living on the planet. So I'm not quite sure how they actually worked that one out. I'm hoping the sound will work on this. Now, Professor Clive Boddy, he used to teach at Middlesex University, and he's got his views on corporate psychopaths. So I'm going to play you 4 minutes of this, and then we'll go on to the remainder of my presentation. I hope the sound will work. This is a TED talk.
Right, hello everybody. I'm here to tell you a bit of a story about why I got interested in the link between corporate psychopaths and bullying. A long time ago, in a land far away, I was running a business in the Far East, and as a part of that, I was moved offices. And when I was moved offices, I was told I was getting a new boss.
Sorry.
In the Far East, and as a part of that, I was moved offices. And when I was moved offices, I was told I was getting a new boss. And various people came up to me and said, you have to be careful about this new guy, this new boss you're getting. He's very manipulative, he's very ruthless, he's very cunning, and he's almost downright evil. So I thought, this guy sounds like a bit of a monster, a bit of a devil. And when people say things like that to you, that's what you expect. You expect to meet a monster. What you actually meet is a utterly charming man in a well-cut suit who looks very attractive, is very sociable, very extroverted, and he doesn't look like a monster at all. It looks like your next best friend. And so you get confused, and you think, these people must have been wrong. He's not a monster, he's a nice guy. I'm going to really enjoy working with this person. Looking back years later, people would say to me, well, how did you end up in the circumstances that you ended up with? And I could never answer that until I read about corporate psychopaths, and then it all clicked together. So that's my personal reason for getting involved in psychopathy and corporate psychopaths. As I started to read about bullying as a different part of my academic job, I realized there's probably a large area of crossover between bullies and psychopaths in the workplace. So I started to look at bullying itself. It's usually described...
Okay. So that's the bit of a background there on the concept of corporate psychopaths, and it is a problem that business is picking up. I'll put I won't show the second video unless there's time at the end. So, but the link will be on the pack you have, and I do recommend it. But some of the key points we pick up from that is that what are the characteristics? Lack or remorse or guilt. They don't care. Why would they? You're a problem, not the solution. It's about I, or as David Brent said, about me, because there's no I in team, but there's a me in team, and it's all about me. Egotistical, callous, pathological lying. And this is what this, and I'd say it's far harder probably for these people to work in today's days, because we've got far more openness. And someone close to me works for a large unitary authority in Buckinghamshire. I can't say who it is. And they've got about 7 layers of management between that person and the chief exec. It's designed so this big, fatter middle management, the corporate psychopaths, can hide in there. Because the person at the top doesn't care about the person at the bottom. They're on £260,000 a year. They don't, and they've created a brand new bonus scheme where, of course, if you work really hard and put maybe an extra half hour a day in unpaid, you might get an extra 1% pay rise at the end of the year. And if you're part-time and only working 4 hours, an extra 12% of effort to get what you want and lose 1%, you know what? It's a no-brainer. That's the problem with performance-rated pay. It comes in that it promotes people. Glib and superficial sheen, I've seen it. We've all seen it with somebody. They're devious. Now, I can reflect to that description Professor Clive Body gave to somebody I had who was managed my organisation. They were in charge about 17, they were in charge until 10 years after I left. And their characteristic was to wait till the end of the day if there'd been a problem somewhere, knowing that it would be a manager or someone who would be in the office by themselves and come in and ambush that person. And they even said that the person would wait, they'd hide outside to come in there. They carry out character assassination. They damage your reputation. So when you go and complain for bullying and harassment, you won't get very far because you've already been assassinated. In the boardroom, you are a problem. You might not have done anything wrong, but you're a problem. They therefore isolate the victim, which works quite well because that person will very often leave before any redundancy process or any appropriate way of compensation. Now, this is a real problem for businesses because this goes against everything in your policies. So let's consider empathy. People who are psychopaths are different to most people. They're deficient in a skill. They do not have empathy. They can't feel for others the same as they can. So they can't feel the same as others feel. It can be measured psychometrically because empathy is an involuntary emotional response. And most people feel for others who are deeply upset. People without empathy do not have such feelings. In fact, they get a kick out of upsetting people. And it is really quite serious. These psychometric tests involve showing people things that would normally cause distress, like an animal getting hurt, somebody crying, against normal things. So they put things like where you get a neutral reaction, like a picture of a table or a chair, then put other visuals in there that again, and they monitor the brain's reaction, and from that they can compare one against the other. And the other video which is attached to this presentation, which you can all see in your own time, will pick that one up. So a challenge: how do we spot it before it has a problem for the company and individuals whose lives they ruin? Organisations do not just fail to screen for their presence, they actually recruit them. Companies find it very difficult to admit to it being a problem. These people often end up committing fraud, leave companies broken, penniless and losing staff. These people cannot be rehabilitated. Therapy actually makes things worse as it teaches them new skills and strategies that they learn to navigate around. A good corporate psychopath will know the bullying harassment policy. They'll behave in a way that they can never use the bullying harassment policy you've got against them. How many people have got frustrated with their organisations with how useless HR is? And that's the phrase they hear: they won't help me out because the policies and procedures have been ambushed. The enemy, the fifth columnists in the organisation, know all about it. So there is some disagreement between academics, and again, the current head of psychology at Middlesex actually believes that maybe organisations create the problem. And so we have these two things: that there are people naturally have it, and yet businesses do create it. And when I see those two things, I just see them in harmony. I just see there's opportunity that someone will grasp that a business creates, and I think there's a mixture of both. Because when we're dealing with people, I think it's like many things, it tends to cross over. You've got to consider things like adverts. You'll be motivated and flexible and able to work well under pressure, working with tight deadlines in a fast-paced environment where multitasking is needed. Do whatever is needed to meet deadlines. Do whatever is needed. That's a challenge, isn't it? I'm going to have a bit of that. I fancy that. Challenging role, not for the faint-hearted. Those who understand football, straight into the two-footed tackle. Those in the rugby union, the short arm tackle around the neck. Take somebody out high. But do it on the rest blind side, of course. I had a colleague who's played rugby, and his idea of a good game of rugby at the weekend was actually leaving people such injury they couldn't go to work on a Monday from the opposing side. That was his definition of a good game of rugby. He didn't know what the rugby ball was, by the way, but he knew what he was getting out of it. 4th and 5th team rugby, by the way, in the rural shires is quite interesting. I won't mention anywhere in Dorset. There is somebody in Dorset on here. So an interview, these corporate psychopaths present themselves confidently. You heard what Clive said. Perfect guy. The guy I found, or we all knew at the company I used to work for, and I'm so tempted to name the person, but I won't because this is being recorded. But the interesting thing is that I remember being
David,
warned,
you've got to behave.
I remember, and I'm not doing it, and I remember being warned about watch that so-and-so by a carpenter. He was actually a sawyer, and his experience was World War II. He'd fought in the Second World War, and he'd been through the issues. And he understood how people worked. Lovely guy. They're totally confident, no doubts, no hesitations, such that we'd always employ that person. So what can we do? You know, remember, is your boss opportunity to be ruthless, hates to lose and play to win? Does your boss consider people that they're outsmarted, dumb or stupid? Remember, these people get to the top. If you complain to the organisation, who will they believe? A discredited and mentally deranged you or this plausible person? How good are 360-degree reviews? So one of the things I picked up is actually that by looking at underperforming teams, businesses can then do a 360 review of managers. And when there's different feedback from the different areas, that's where you focus. So underperforming team, 360 reviews, and then process. And by the way, when HR and management eventually get around to doing this, so there must be some governance mechanism. This is all done rather clandestine because you cannot go in there because the corporate psychopath knows the rules. They know how to be found out. And very often people will leave before there's a problem, before it exposes. So their CV is quite plausible. Well, they cause a lot of damage in their work environment. It'd be hard to kick them to the curb. Instead of getting fired, they often move from team to team. So that is part of the problem. So it's said, but being transferred doesn't fix the problem. In corporate America, if a psychopath doesn't get their way, or if their charm just stops working, they resort to the opposite direction: screaming, throwing water bottles, bullying. So, and that came from, again, another link that you've got up there, which is again well worth looking at. So, longitudinal study reports on a charity in the UK which gained a new CEO who was reported by 2 middle managers who worked in the charity to embody all or most of the 10 characteristics of a measure of corporate psychopathy. The leadership of the CEO with a high corporate psychology score was reported to be so poor that the organisation was described as being one without leadership and a lost organisation in no direction. So again, we're in the charity sector, the third sector. The paper outlined the resultant characteristics of the ensuing aimlessness and a lack of drive of the organisation involved. So comparisons made to a previous CEO in the same organisation who was reportedly an authentic, effective, transformational leader. Outcomes under the CEO with a high corporate psychopathy score were related to bullying, staff withdrawal and turnover as effective employees stayed away from and or left the organisation. Outcomes also included a marked organisational decline in terms of revenue, employee commitment, creativity and organisational motivation. So again, back to this thing, where does corporate culture come from? It's at the top, isn't it? So you see, we have a problem with this. We all talk about corporate culture, how we change it at the top, but do we? If you've got a corporate psychopath there, these are challenges I think we have as professionals. And I think if we're serious about well-being and about people, is how can we get these rather unpleasant people out of our organisation, out of our lives? So Clive, getting right towards the end here, which is, I said it wouldn't be too long. Basically, again, this peer-reviewed journal can be found. And he's saying really that the finding emphasised the need for both internal and external auditors to pay more attention to human resource management processes as the first line of defence against corporate psychopaths. One of the big problems with this study is a small study. It's very difficult to do research in this area, as you can probably understand. So the next set of questions, again, can we have the next set of questions up, please, can we? So hopefully now you can reappraise your first. I hope we get more in the blue than the red this time. I'm looking at those scores coming in. Okay, we've reached just over 80%. Do you want to? It's pleasing that you've picked up on the first bit. Thank you very much. And interesting on the second bit there, that far more of you now think you have been, which does worry me. But worry all of us. And maybe this is the elephant, another elephant in the room, that why health and safety policies and procedure HR ones don't really work, because the people don't want them to work. So do you want the next question as well, please? There's one more question as well for this one, is there? Did I ask the third one? Don't think we did, so I shall. So again, please ask yourselves, have you got access to psychological advice? And finally, the book, and have a look at this book. I do recommend it. Snakes in Soup When Psychopaths Go to Work. You can, there are ways of getting it on the internet. Have a look at it for the best way of getting it for you at the lowest cost. Again, in the public sector, the final bit, results demonstrate that corporations are seeking out characteristics that are synonymous to factor one psychopathic personality traits, which could increase the propensity of successful psychopaths in the workplace. The results also allude to potential protective factors that could be put in place by corporations during their hiring processes. These factors include measures for empathy and emotional IQ. Beyond the hiring process, it suggests that incentive-based promotions should be lessened and placed with incentives to promote care and respect for one another, reiterating Louise's point earlier on. And my last point is from visual observation. I remember the most number of sets of tears I've seen from a senior female person in the HR profession have come from a female HR leader. More tears amongst that person's member of staff. So as I said, there are it is both sexes, all about the propensity for male and female is different. At that point, I'm going to end it.